Okay, so in these sessions over the months, we've been exploring some of the aspects of different modes of mind that we can relate to our experience with, and so I'm going to continue with that today. Those of you who were at last week's open session might remember that we looked at how the human mind enables multiple associations to be made between, for example, sounds like words and events. It can kind of label experiences to such a degree that we can formulate whole scenarios in our heads that aren't necessarily actually happening right now. And I made the comparison with the dog, who can only make one connection at a time, it seems. So if you train a dog to sit down when it hears the word sit, or ring a bell when it's given food, and it will salivate when it hears the bell, but it can't do a whole sequence of these. So you can't say to a dog, sit, then walk, then please go and pick up the newspaper. It'll get stuck on one. And in fact, if you put the others together with it, it won't even follow the one because it's not discrete enough. So it's actually a really unique human ability to be able to link these strings of associations together, so that we can plan ahead, we can learn from concepts rather than just from experience. Very, very powerful skill that enables us to formulate solutions to all sorts of problems. A really nice example of this is when, if you can imagine that you have a screw that you want to tighten, and you have two objects. You've got a lighter, like a cigarette lighter, and you've got a plastic biro pen. And whilst I'm not going to ask you to do this now, if you spend a little bit of time thinking about how you might tighten the screw, the likelihood is at some point, some people at least will recognize that the lighter produces fire and that the biro is made of plastic, and so the fire could melt the plastic, could be placed into the screw, it would then harden, and you'd be able to turn the screw. Now, once again, your average Labrador can't do this. So, it's just an example, simple example of how powerful our minds can be to formulate solutions to all sorts of different problems, and it's led to our dominance as a species on this planet, for good or for worse. Now, another thing that we can do when we have this capacity is to start to be able to monitor what's going on, and to be able to evaluate it. And again, this can be really, really helpful. So, for example, if I'm writing a chapter of a book, then it enables me to kind of monitor my progress as we go along. Like, how many words have I done? Am I pleased with what's happening so far? Is there anything I want to change? So I can compare my kind of ideal finished chapter with where I am right now, and that helps me plot the course towards finishing in a way that's satisfactory. And you can compare this to any task, any kind of external task like this that you could complete. Making a meal, fixing a car, sending someone to the moon, building a house. But it also means that we can get lost in our judgments about the experience. So I might start worrying about, will people like this chapter that I'm writing? Will I ever finish it? What if it's not good enough? What if I get stuck? And because we have this negativity bias that means we're more alert to threats than to opportunities. Quite often these judgments are negative, and because of course we've got associations with these, it can actually lead us to feeling bad about an experience that hasn't happened yet. So whilst it's hugely powerful, it may not always be good for our well-being. And so I just want to extend that a little bit this time by also kind of suggesting that this only really works for external situations. So what happens if we try to compare our inner experiences of what's happening now with what we want to be happening? So, if we want to be happy, but we're not happy right now, it's not so simple as just kind of plotting a course towards the end goal of happiness. Our mood might fluctuate along the way at various points. It's not a straight line. And what seems to happen is that when we make a state of being our end goal, it actually reflects back on us in a way that is unhelpful, because we identify the ideal state and we notice where we are now, and we feel dissatisfied because we're not at the end state. So the irony is that wanting to achieve a feeling, such as feeling happy, actually is counterproductive. And there's been research on this. So a researcher called Iris Mouse, who I believe is based in Canada, who found that people who make happiness their goal are actually less happy than people who find happiness perhaps as a byproduct of investing in experiences that they love moment by moment, rather than, as I say, making a goal of well-being. So the well-being project, if you like, ironically often doesn't work. This is where our practice can come in here, because our practice involves focusing on the quality of our experiences moment by moment. So actually, rather than focusing on the end point, we focus on the process of the journey. So actually, the journey becomes our only goal, to be here now, to feel our way along without needing to continually be checking with how we're doing. Now, it doesn't mean we can't change course based on the feedback we get from our moment by moment experience, but rather than being a kind of a struggle to achieve something, it's more a case of responding to the fluctuations, a kind of a capacity for homeostasis that comes if we're adjusting and rebalancing as an ongoing experiencing and responding. So whilst our concepts are useful in many, many circumstances, if we see them as the only way of meeting reality, then we can often find ourselves in struggle or trouble. Not only that, but of course we've moved away from the direct experience. The thought banana is not actually a banana. It's just a thought. It's a representation of something, but it's only a representation of something. It doesn't actually give us the experience. There's a lovely piece of poetry by Antonio Machado, which speaks to this quality of co-creating our experience moment by moment by how we attend. So he said this: Walker, your footsteps are the road and nothing more. Walker, there is no road. The road is made by walking. Walking, you make the road. And turning to look behind, you see the path you never again will step upon. Walker, there is no road, only foam trails on the sea. So it's beautiful. So this capacity, which we all have, when we drop out of ideas about where we're going, and rather to ground ourselves in where we are right now with intention, we can still steer, but we're steering based on the actual road that we're on, if you like, the one that we're making by the walking of it. You're actually in touch directly with what's here. And we can listen to the feedback. We're in tune with our bodies. We still maybe have a direction of travel that we choose and can adjust moment by moment. So actually, we can be deeply in tune with what's here, which actually, as it happens, can be really helpful in achieving goals, because we're actually in contact with reality. We're able to steer based on that reality. It just means it's a different way of navigating. It's a bit like sailing a boat in kind of stormy weathers. If the weather's clear, I understand. If you're sailing a boat, you can plot a course. You can look at where you want to go, and you just steer in that direction, and you'll end up there. But if the weather's stormy, that kind of navigation system doesn't work very well, because you could be going all over the place. So you have to come back to this sense of adjusting moment by moment, trusting much more the feel of things, having a direction of travel, but re-navigating moment by moment. And it's the same in our lives as well. When things are perhaps stormy or not the way we expect them to be, not the routine, then actually this experiential way of connecting with life is more effective. And to kind of extend the boat analogy, if you've got a boat and you just make one little change, you can end up in quite a different place in the long term. So these little kind of fluctuations, adjustments that we can make, can actually have quite a big effect, not maybe in the short term, but in the longer term. So we can continue to sort of make the path by steering from here and now. This, of course, takes practice, because we are habituated to the other way of doing things, which obviously can be so effective in many, many ways. So to come into this kind of stormy weather sailing mode takes practice. And that's where our meditation practice comes in, to help us to integrate all of the different feedbacks from our mind and body, but without seeing any of them as the whole of what's happening. So not our thoughts, not our feelings. They're all held in this space of watchful, friendly awareness. So there's a kind of sense of integration can come when we look from this perspective. You see the spaces, not just the things in the spaces. And meditation is a way of training us to kind of relate to the world in this more direct, experiential, but perhaps less logical, perhaps, or conceptually driven, fixed way. It requires a quality of attention, because things are continually moving. Whereas in the conceptual mode, kind of words and ideas tend to refer to, they tend to have a quality of fixedness about them. There's no flexibility, and no room for context. So one of the great things about when we relate mindfully with our lives is that there's more space to recognize the effect of different contexts. But let me show you a couple of slides on this just before I finish. Let's see if I can just bring this into sharing screen. So just bear with me a second. Yeah, so I think this will come up. So there's just three little slides here. This first one demonstrates how how we can very easily, our minds will predict what's coming next based on what it expects to be happening. The brain fills in the gaps. Everyone see that one? Yeah, you see, you can read it even though it's only half there. Yeah. Second one here. So this one's about context. Yeah. So if you put your hands over the A and the C, chances are you'll see the numbers 12, 13, and 14 in the vertical. But if you then put your hands over the numbers 12 and 14, you see ABC, right? And then maybe you'll see a kind of combination of both when you zoom out. Yeah, so what we'll see will depend on the context, depend on what we're primed by. And here's another example of that. Some of you might have seen. Generally speaking, people will intuit that the right-sided orange circle looks bigger than the left, even though we might know that they're the same. And again, it's the context, it's the size of the circles around them that creates this. Okay. So if we can be alive to the contexts, maybe that can help us recognize how our perceptions might get skewed by what's going on around. So one final example. So we might have the idea that roller coasters are really, really fun. Yeah, or not, depending on who we are and our experience with roller coasters. However, probably most people will agree that they won't be fun if we've got a headache. Yeah, so the daily context affects how we experience. Or, for example, many of us might like ice cream. So, ice cream's really tasty. But probably if you've just had 6 tubs of ice cream, the 7th one won't look that tasty. And yet we have this concept, ice cream, yum, yum, roller coasters, fun, exciting, or scary, depending on, again, our context. Yeah, so by letting go of the sense of fixity in our ideas, useful though they often are, if the kind of like the task is clear and there's an easy resolution, if we can also choose to let go of these and come into an experiential mode that takes in all of the context and recognizes kind of the impermanence of each moment and how we can make the path by walking, then with situations that don't have a clear fix, we may be able to navigate more skillfully.